Hello everyone, so I wanted to do this video for a while now. I've been thinking about doing it for a while. The topic has been in my head. But recent events, recent discussions I've had with people have made me just go, yeah, make this video now. Basically, this video is going to be about the Constitution. Wow, fantastic. Just as I start making this video, drilling on the other side of the wall. Now, the Constitution is essentially a set of principles which detail and outline how the state works and what it can and can't do. Now, when you say the word Constitution, most people generally think of the American Constitution, but guess what, America? It's not all about you. The UK has a constitution as well, but the thing about our constitution is that it's unwritten or uncodified. I know, big words, huh? What that means is that the series of laws and fundamental principles which set out how the UK works and to what end are not all written up into one single document as it is in the US. Our constitution is derived from a number of sources. These include statute law, common law, European law, treaties, court rulings, etc. The reason for this is that there's never really been anything in our country's history that has made summing up our constitution into a single document particularly necessary. Constitutions are usually written either when the country is being founded or when there's been a massive government overhaul or political crisis. Thing is, my country is fairly old and there's not really a single moment in time that you can pin down quite easily when it started. It's involved invasions, occupations, wars, yada yada yada, all that lovely stuff, and so a written constitution just never emerged. The workings of this country evolved gradually over time as opposed to one single event occurring which made everyone think, oh shit, we need a constitution. On top of that, the UK, Great Britain, whatever you want to call it, has generally been quite stable. Aside from the Commonwealth period, there's never really been a political crisis in this country serious enough to warrant adopting a codified constitution. Whether that's because we just got lucky or whether we're just awesome in general is another matter altogether. Basically, there's never been a set of circumstances that have coalesced and come to a head so dramatically as to warrant writing up a codified constitution in this country. Now, for us, this has a number of consequences. I'm not sure to what extent these consequences are shared by other countries that don't have codified constitutions, like New Zealand and Israel. I'm guessing each country's individual history and political culture probably has a significant effect on this, but for us here in the UK, there are some substantial effects of not having a written constitution. Now, while discussing this with Federalist Films, you may know him as Rob, I know him as Wobby, or My Little Puddin Puff, his main issues seem to be with the doctrine of parliamentary sovereignty. What parliamentary sovereignty means is that the decisions made by Parliament are final, and it can basically do whatever it wants. In the US, the Constitution makes certain things sacrosanct, such as the illegality of slavery. No matter what, no law can be passed which allows slavery, as it is therefore unconstitutional. Now, it is possible to amend the Constitution to facilitate a change in the law, but this is a lot harder than passing a law in Congress, and so the Constitution essentially represents a higher level of authority on the fundamental principles of how the government is run and what rights the citizens have. Now, since here in the UK we don't have a constitution that sets down certain vital principles, in this case the illegality of slavery, it's directly from the laws passed in Parliament that it is determined whether people can or cannot be slaves. Now, slavery is illegal here in the UK, but if Parliament wanted to change that by repealing the law, they could do so quite easily. There is no higher level of authority than Parliament that says they can't, so goes the concept of parliamentary sovereignty. Now, we live in a democracy, so we can vote out a government that legalised slavery, but the point is, between elections, Parliament can do whatever it wants. Slavery is an extreme example. In reality, no MP is going to actually try and reinvigorate slavery. Well, except for maybe the BNP. But a less extreme example is when MPs voted to exempt themselves from the Freedom of Information Act. This was done ostensibly to protect the confidentiality of correspondence between MPs and their constituents. Many people believe it was done simply to block disclosures concerning MPs' expenses, and we all know how that turned out, don't we? So enacting a written constitution has the potential to put some restrictions on what MPs can and can't do, or make certain things, such as slavery in this case, illegal outright, as it is in the US. Another advantage of having a written constitution is that it makes it a lot easier for citizens to be clear on their rights and liberties. There is a single readable document that can be referred to and understood fairly easily. At the moment, our constitution comes from various sources that were written at different times, spanning centuries. A codified constitution would make public understanding of the nature and workings of our state, our government, and our rights far simpler. So it would seem like a no-brainer. We should have a written codified constitution. Well, it's not actually that simple. There are a few very important things that we need to consider before we jump on the codified constitution bandwagon. First of all, if we draw up a constitution now, it could potentially include things that wouldn't be particularly agreeable to us. Other constitutions have had discrimination written into them, such as the recently approved Hungarian constitution, which will take effect in 2012. Article M, Section 1, under Basic Stipulations, reads, Hungary protects the institution of marriage between man and woman, a matrimonial relationship voluntarily established, as well as the family as the basis for the survival of the nation. Well, isn't that nice? Article 2, under Freedom and Responsibility, reads, Human dignity is inviolable. Everyone has the right to life and human dignity. The right of a fetus will be protected from conception. Again, lovely. And though, as I'm aware, Hungary is a secular nation, the preamble of their new constitution includes things like, we are proud that our king, St. Stephen, I don't know how to pronounce that name in Hungarian. King St. Steve, okay. We are proud that our king, St. Steve, established the Hungarian state on firm foundations 1,000 years ago and made our country part of Christian Europe. And we recognise the role of Christianity in preserving our nationhood. So it's entirely possible for a constitution to include discrimination and religious bias. Now, I doubt if we adopted a written constitution here in the UK, it would discriminate against gays and women who want to get abortions, but let's not forget, we are not a secular country. We still have the Church of England as the established state church of the United Kingdom, and it's represented in Parliament in the House of Lords. If we were to write up a codified constitution in this country, would it continue to impose upon us a state religion? Because it seems like that is entirely possible to me. You may also be aware that I'm not a particularly big fan of the monarchy. I think that the monarchy is unnecessary and a waste of time and money, and that Prince Charles is a wanker. It is entirely possible, if not probable, that a new written codified constitution would enshrine the monarchy even deeper into my country. A related problem with all of this is that not everyone actually agrees on stuff. A majority of people here in the UK are actually in favour of the monarchy for some fucking reason. Screw democracy, royal weddings, Pippa's arse. Morons. Actually getting everyone to agree on what to put into the constitution and what to specifically leave out would be a total nightmare, logistically. Lastly, one of the biggest problems that I foresee, well, that other people have foreseen and I've read on the internet, relates back to something that I mentioned earlier. Remember parliamentary sovereignty? Well, one of the main principles of parliamentary sovereignty is that no parliament can do anything which would constrict a future parliament, which means they can't pass a law which a future parliament couldn't repeal. And since that's essentially the point of a constitution, that it sets down what parliament can and can't do, a lot of people are actually questioning whether enacting a written constitution is even possible. Now, I'm not sure if there's a way around that. I don't know if it, counts technically, because a constitution isn't a law. It's a constitution. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Are there any lawyers out there that specialise in constitutional law? I think Prof MTH actually specialises in constitutional law. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he does. But even then, it'll be the American Constitution. See, America has all the fun. So you see, despite all the good reasons in favour of having a written constitution, as with all things in politics, things are complicated, often more so than they initially seem. Now, I personally like the idea of having a codified constitution. But only if I agree with everything that's in it. If a lot of things that I don't like end up in the Constitution, it would be far harder to get rid of them than it is now. And even though I doubt that this would happen, if the Constitution did do things like discriminate against gay people or, women trying to get abortions, I'd probably rather not have it. So, what do you think? Maybe you've got an interesting perspective on this, maybe you're a ton smarter than me and you know something I don't. Whether you're British or not, I'd love to hear what you have to think on this issue. Comments are great, video responses even better. Should the United Kingdom adopt a written constitution? Or do the cons outweigh the pros? Do you think it's even possible for us to enact a written constitution? Let me know. See you later, everybody.